There have been arrests, threats of death, and bankruptcies for Gordon Ramsay. But 2016 was completely unprepared for. Rocky, his unborn son, passed away at 5 months of gestation, and the family was never the same. In retrospect, Gordon acknowledged that losing Rocky was necessary before they could have had Oscar. Many were perplexed by that remark. His meaning was unclear. The solution is a web of in vitro fertilization, IVF procedures, and an 18-month ordeal, and an affair that nearly ended his marriage in 2008. Although Tana had experienced miscarriage previously, the circumstances surrounding this particular incident remained undisclosed until Gordon chose to discuss it several years down the road. Gordon Ramsay came into this world in a little Scottish village named Gestation on November 8, 1966. Out of 4 children, he was the second. Helen, his mother, was a nurse. Gordon James Sr., his father, had a variety of occupations, including that of grocer, welder, and swimming pool manager. However, he was consistently unemployed. His heavy drinking eventually drove a wedge amongst his family members. Growing up, Gordon lived in constant terror, constantly evading debt, unsatisfactory employment, and violent encounters. They were forced to relocate. The home would become a battleground whenever his drunken father lost control. There was a pattern to his mother's hospital stays. She required 57 stitches on her face due to the severity of one beating. On occasion, the authorities were summoned. There were instances when the kids had to be removed from danger. Observations were made by Gordon. He witnessed his father break their mother's possessions in an effort to inflict her additional pain. As his mother wailed in blood, he kept watch. Anxietyism crept into their life and stayed there. With Gordon at the age of 5, his family uprooted and settled in Stratford-upon-Avon, England. As a result, the situation deteriorated. His father's aggressive behavior escalated to a perilous level. The way Gordon's father always put the responsibility on the kids was something that Gordon's sister Diane recalled. When they messed up, their mom would get hurt. No child ever felt truly secure. Gordon watched as his dad threw away presents just because they were symbols of affection. The walls of their house were filled with that kind of fury. Gordon, in search of an escape, began working as a waiter in an Indian restaurant when he was 9 years old. His sister was also an employee there. Money was not the issue. The goal was to stay alive. Dishes were a source of calm for him. Focus came to him as he peeled potatoes. Only in that cramped kitchen did everything make sense. There was complete chaos at home. Even after trying everything, his dad couldn't succeed in business. They were bankrupted after opening one store. Work continued for Gordon. Through perseverance and hard work, he was able to achieve his goals. Blood and screams were absent from that. Gordon discovered another means of evasion when he was 12 years old: football. He began training 5 days a week with Warwickshire's under-4 squad. Both swift and ferocious he was. He was so good at swimming that he qualified for the FA Youth Cup. However, his father never showed up to watch him play, regardless of how good he did. Some children's parents were ecstatic. No one spoke to Gordon. He started to feel unheard everywhere else except on the field. He found the parental figures he lacked in his coaches. He felt more valuable the more he trained. Departing from home, he became a teenager. Diane joined him in his new Banbury apartment. He had never felt so secure until that moment. After that, they have relocated more than 10 times. Because to his father's inebriation, infidelity, and disappointments, their lives had become a haze. Departing wasn't merely courageous. The goal was to stay alive. Gordon also started taking a class in hotel management that year. It was the beginning of his journey towards a brighter future. Another thing he committed to himself was that alcohol would never be a part of his life. He was aware of its capabilities. Gordon came close to realizing his dream of playing football when he was 15 years old. His dad's favorite team, Glasgow Rangers, gave him a tryout in 1984. He recalled playing as a tenacious left back and how he was unbeatable on both occasions. However, everything came to a halt in 1985 during training. His cartilage was ruined by a knee injury. Surgical intervention was necessary for him. Football was no longer a goal for him. He felt his father's scorn and laughter as he mocked him. That was an unforgettable time for Gordon. Consequently, he enrolled in North Oxfordshire Technical College's hotel management program in 1986. He learned the hard way how busy restaurant kitchens could be as a part-time worker doing dishes and pots. In a fit of rage, the cooks swung pots and cursed. However, Gordon persisted. He found a target for his wrath and a glimmer of optimism in those challenging kitchens. He began pitching in to assist his mom out financially by the time he was 18 years old. No matter how low he got, his dad couldn't stop drinking. The mounting mountain of overdue debts was causing their home situation to crumble. Every day, Gordon saw his mom fight. His determination grew as a result. Again, he vowed that he would never follow in his father's footsteps. He was 20 years old when he graduated from college in 1987. His father had a very bad tantrum that year as well. Once again, under the influence, he wrecked their furniture. It was enough for Gordon. It was the last push. He preferred working in the kitchen over any office in the hotel. As a means of escaping both poverty and trauma, cooking would be his salvation. Gordon also began working with Marco Pierre White at London's Harvey's in 1987. Both Marco's skill and his fury were well known. Brutal was the kitchen. Working side by side with Marco, Gordon toiled for 16 hours straight without a break. On one occasion, due to an accidental sauce, Marco hurled a pan towards Gordon's head. As Marco yelled at him, Gordon sobbed and collapsed in the corner. This was not a job. We were at war. However, Gordon remained. How razor-sharp perfection could be, he discovered. He relocated to Legavo, which was led by Albert Roux in 1988. Instead of using pans as a punishment, Roux used other methods. Gordon accidentally broke a dish once. Nearly an entire day's salary was located for him by Roux. Once again, following a midnight service, he was tasked with scrubbing the floors. We were under tremendous strain. Still, Gordon persisted. He took it all in. The exactness, the punctuality, the taste. He learned more than simply how to cook. He obtained self-control. He joined Joel Robuchon's team in Paris in 1989. Ramsay scrimped and saved by sleeping in a broom closet. He closely observed Robuchon's every move, although he hardly consumed any food. The next time he cooked the same meal, he forgot to season it. Robuchon snapped. A hot plate was flung at Gordon's head by him. It was visible to all. Once again, Gordon sobbed. It was the sole plate Robuchon ever threw throughout his career, as he later confessed. However, Ramsay remained. It hurt, but he understood it was necessary for learning. In 1990, he was an apprentice to Guy Savoy. After experimenting with different temperatures, Ramsay once damaged a pot of fish stock. Savoy kept his voice down. In his edict, he had Ramsay locked in a walk-in freezer. Gordon stood in his icy chef whites for half an hour, trembling and almost completely paralyzed. He almost gave up at that point. However, he channeled his suffering into motivation. He was back at Albert Roux by 1991, specifically at the Wateride Inn. His age was 25. One of the most challenging recipes in the kitchen, a sorbet, was Roux's way of testing him. Gordon prepared it expertly. Shock swept over Roux. In that very instant, Gordon was promoted to the positions of senior chef d'Apartment. Someone in a position of authority finally looked at him with admiration rather than anger. Plus, Gordon learned something from it. With all the thrashing, freezing, and strain, he had not been broken. He had been molded by them. Gordon Ramsay became the head chef at the Oberyn restaurant in Chelsea in 1993 at the tender age of 27. Marco Pierre White was instrumental in his hiring. The proprietors, David and Rosemary Knight, and Gordon had an acrimonious relationship from the very beginning. In spite of Gordon's repeated demands for premium components, they persisted in seeking cost savings. Budget discussions were held weekly, and nearly every week, Gordon would yell at the end of the meeting. According to the staff, it became routine. The owners attempted to tame Gordon, but he screamed something about hamburger, cheese, or wine. Those meetings were so unpleasant that no one wanted to be there. The first Michelin star has been awarded to Oberyn by January 1994. Gordon had one of his most trying weeks during what ought to have been a joyous occasion. During their visit, one of his sous chefs brought the Michelin inspector's soup that was barely warm. In the midst of serving supper, Gordon yelled that he could not tolerate any mistakes and dismissed him. A later sighting outside the eatery revealed the young chef in tears. Since then, before any dish ever left the kitchen, Gordon would sample it. As a matter of fact, he burned his tongue multiple times to guarantee that the food was sufficiently hot. There were 2 Michelin stars in Oberyn by 1995. In reality, though, things were deteriorating behind the scenes. It was the owner's hidden desire to fire Gordon and reinstate Marco Pierre White. When Gordon learned it, he surprised everyone. A motorbike courier he had hired in 1998 broke into the eatery, took the reservation book, and rode off. This was in the pre-computer era, so the book included hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of bookings spread out across months. The thief, according to Gordon, was Marco. No one doubted his words. Nonetheless, Gordon came clean in an interview with a magazine in 2007 about who it was. According to him, the book was still safely stashed away in his home safe. Gordon accomplished something even more monumental in July of the same year, 1998. Along with himself, he persuaded 39 of the 40 employees at Oberyn and its sister restaurant, Laurent, to resign. One lone soul lingered on. Gordon was hit with a $100 million lawsuit by the enraged restaurant owners. Rumor has it that he took kitchen components, damaged ovens, and unplugged refrigerators. Gordon allegedly told one chef that he would be broken if he did not quit. Gordon countersued by suing the owners, claiming they had handled the situation poorly. Gordon came out on top in the final outcome. A settlement of $1.5 million was given to him. Even while they were open, the restaurants were losing 15,000 daily and were unable to accommodate their prominent customers, such as Princess Margaret and Robert Darrow. Gordon used that money to open his own eatery. In the fall of that year, Gordon took over the former Unclear location and established Gordon Ramsay. Even though his dishwasher left mid-service on one of the first evenings, he managed to keep both Michelin stars. In addition to managing the kitchen, Gordon was also forced to scrub plates by himself. Through the window, customers could observe him in his wet and yelling state. Even washing dishes is an important part of working at a restaurant, as he learned that night. Another secret, though, was 1993. Gordon was taken into custody at Green Park Underground Station that same year in March for committing a gross indecency. Having gotten drunk the night before, he was joined by 2 other chefs. Upon hearing some unusual noises coming from the restroom, a station employee contacted the authorities. They brought all 3 to the West End Central Police Station after they were apprehended. One of them had been using the sink as a restroom, according to a later statement from a Gordon representative who characterized the incident as funny. Nobody had any idea for a long time, but in 2004, a newspaper contacted him to inquire. Gordon ended the call silently. An interview with Gordon that was published in 1999 by The Guardian generated quite a stir. The fact that women had periods and could get pregnant, he maintained, made them unfit to work in kitchens. He went on to say that they were unattractive. Considering the context, the remarks were quite severe. Those misogynistic remarks were difficult to shake. According to a subsequent BBC article, that characterized his ego as larger than a pavlova. New York City restaurant manager Martin Hyde was violently humiliated by Gordon in 2001 during the production of Kitchen Nightmares. He was forced to crawl on the sidewalk by Gordon. Hyde proceeded to sue, seeking $29 million. According to him, the presentation had actors playing the role of clients, staging a fall with a broken chair, and even planting spoiled meat in the fridge. A cautionary tale about the potentially violent nature of reality television. The show was then canceled and never aired again. Gordon faced charges of drunk driving the next year in 2002. He was on a one-way street going in the opposite direction. He failed a breath test administered by the police, but the charges were dropped because the authorities neglected to provide him with a legally mandated blood test. Gordon later claimed he was completely sober and that the incident hadn't happened. After that, Gordon and one of the contestants, Jeff Lyoff, had an altercation in 2004 during the premiere season of Hell's Kitchen. Gordon shoved Jeff behind the scenes, yet Jeff still quit after calling him in. Both of Jeff's ankles were hurt when he fell. He was later paid $120,000 in a settlement. No mention of the fight was made on the show. It was merely stated that Jeff left due to injuries. The true Gordon, hiding behind the kitchen doors, was revealed in the 1999 documentary Boiling Point. His tantrums included cursing at the kitchen staff, breaking mirrors, and hollering "donkey" at them. Its UK audience topped 3.5 million. It catapulted Gordon to fame with its raw and savage intensity. The United States welcomes Hell's Kitchen in 2005. Contestants were yelled at by Gordon in the pilot episode for preparing uncooked scallops. According to him, one of the dishes resembled a camel's poop. He let 2 employees go on the very same night. It was a smashing success among viewers. Gordon stopped by Amy's Baking Company in 2006 while filming an additional episode of Kitchen Nightmares. He became really ill after eating a burger with an odor similar to sewage. He spent 2 days in the hospital. Following this, Gordon stopped tasting food for himself and got 11 stomach ulcers. Gordon lost his cool with a competitor in 2008 on MasterChef UK when their stool failed. Even though it was just 200 in the morning, he insisted that the man redo it. It was flawless on the second try. One of Gordon's happiest moments, he told him as he embraced him. A producer in 2009 botched up the timing of orders during a difficult day of production. Gordon shattered his hand punching a concrete wall, but he kept recording and stayed quiet about it for days, keeping it a secret from his employees. Petrus, Gordon's second restaurant, first debuted in 1999. By 2000, it had earned a Michelin star. There were 6 bankers who spent more than $44,000 on wine in 2001. Spitting on the wall was the source of $2,300 in damages for one cook. Marcus Waring, who had been Gordon's head chef, departed and later built a rival restaurant in the same spot in 2008. Although Gordon retained the Petrus name, the divorce was contentious. Then, in 2009, it came to light in the media that Gordon's eateries were actually using frozen food. He had a history of attacking other cooks for similar actions, so this came as a shock to everyone. The harm was already done, despite his team's best efforts to defend it. Some thought it was hypocritical. In 2001, Gordon established a restaurant in Dubai named Vera. It lasted far longer than expected. All the while, he resented the furnishings and got into fights with Hilton management. It ended in 2011. There was a larger issue at the root of the partnership's demise. All throughout the globe, Gordon was losing money. He has already seen his empire crumble by 2008. Within a year, the debt had increased from $4 million to $9.48 million, from $30 million to $383,000. Profits plummeted. Unpaid taxes totaled $8 million. He was forced to let go of 25 employees and sell his Ferrari. He and his father risked everything by investing $5 million each. It was nearly too late, though. The most devastating blow was dealt by his posh Parisian eatery. Poorly, it fell flat. The following year, Gordon's business defaulted on a $10.5 million debt. He could not have survived without emergency refinancing. One of his most daring television series, Next Level Chef, premiered in 2022. The chefs were tested to their utmost in a 3-story kitchen tower. On paper, the concept appeared to be really out there. Depending on their performance, contestants were either promoted or demoted. On one floor, they cooked in high-tech luxury. On the other, they scrambled with leftovers in the basement. There was some backstage chatter about a virtual reality training rig lawsuit that was going to be filed in 2030-21. However, definitive proof could not be located. However, the setup's increasing danger was what mattered. Conflicts arose as a result of the haste to obtain materials. Season after season, his company, Studio Ramsay Global, continued filming for Fox, all the while attempting to keep everything together and giving away a $250,000 reward. After that, in August of 2023, Gordon stunned everyone by really doing what he had always made fun of. By Chef Ramsay, his line of frozen foods was exclusively sold at Walmart when he debuted it. Everything cost less than Sipsis. Lasagna, fish and chips, and shepherd's pie were among the dishes served. Everyone was taken aback. The use of frozen food was the source of Gordon's long-running attacks against restaurants on Kitchen Nightmares. At this point, he was peddling it solely. An unhappy customer said the macaroni and cheese was the worst they'd had in a while. praising the chewy pasta and limp toppings. Anger and disappointment were shared by followers on social media. Anger and his previous statement, "Microwaves are for lazy cooks," began to appear in his comments. It was too late. Gordon stunned everyone with his Instagram post on August 30, 2025. From his earlobe to his neck, his face was sewn and bound in a photo he presented. A skin cancer removal procedure had just taken place. The most prevalent form of the cancer was basal cell carcinoma. It had been discovered during a routine examination following a catastrophic bike accident in 2024. Even before the crash, his supporters were rattled. Gordon, at 58 years old, appeared more approachable than before. Even though he warned his followers to apply sunscreen and made light of the fact that it wasn't a facelift, the terror hiding under his grin was obvious. MasterChef Australia welcomed Gordon back as a guest judge in April 2025. He was just as energetic, but there was a certain calmness to him. 8 former competitors were back for another round of the Keeping Up with Gordon challenge, and they weren't going down without a fight. While speaking about the importance of food in surviving the Melbourne wildfires, he distributed meals to first responders. This time it hit differently. Saying that food may transform lives caused a small break to appear in his voice. It was noted that Gordon's wealth had increased to $220 million by 2025. Not only that, but he had 88 eateries all around the globe and huge television deals. Unfortunately, a bike accident in June 2024 nearly put a stop to it all. A craterized pothole caught him off guard when he was cycling in Connecticut. He was flung to his feet by his bike's sudden turn. His headgear snapped. He was covered in blood. Dark and blue streaks ran along his rib cage. For 3 months, he was unable to work. Even to get moving again, he required daily therapy. "I can't even dress myself," he said. He needed assistance from his cook, Justin Mandel, in putting on pants. According to Gordon, "I felt like a 95-year-old man. Despite receiving nearly $60 million a year, he was still faced with the reality that nothing was certain. He doesn't care about his own body." Tana Hutcherson was 18 years old when they first met in 1992. A meager $12,000 was Gordon's annual income. His days lasted for 18 hours, and he had a violent temper. Tana remained after he dismissed 3 chefs in a single week. The ring he had saved up for 6 months was the one he used to pop the question in 1995. Only 12 people were present during their 1996 wedding. Their nuptials only cost $3,000. When the media discovered them, their honeymoon in Bora Bora became a living nightmare. 3 times they had to change motels. While they were married, Gordon took calls from restaurants. Gordon was absent at the birth of their first daughter, Megan, which took place on May 16, 1999. He continued to work till midnight in preparation for a celebrity event at his restaurant. Tana was the sole provider during her childbirth. At 1:30 the hour, he reached the scene. Smelled like fish and caked in flour. He failed to notice anything. A cry that accompanied the severance of the umbilical cord is her initial sound. It became his greatest regret, he said afterwards. He lost $8,000 because he closed his Michelin-starred restaurant for 1 day in July so he could spend more time with his new kid, Megan. He hadn't had a day off in over 18 months. Holly and Jack were born twins shortly after midnight on January 1st, 2000. Gordon was arrested for drunk driving in 2002, immediately before their baptism. 2 hours after the clock struck midnight, he departed from a charity gathering. Got busted driving his inebriated 80,000 Ferrari. His blood alcohol concentration was 12%. As she watched the children, Tana had to come to his rescue, paying him $5,000. At 6 in the morning, she arrived at the police station on a bed. He was subject to an 18-month license suspension. The incident occurred while filming Hell's Kitchen, costing the network $50,000. They had to redo scenes. He nearly lost Tana. Matilda, their daughter, was born to them in November 2001. Gordon gave her a cookbook as a gift. However, scandal struck the family in 2008. Gordon was allegedly the object of Sarah Simons' 7-year affair. At least 50 times, she added, they convened in hotels. Jewelry, receipts, and bottles of champagne were in her possession. Almost 15,000 were spent on lunch. His 42nd birthday was the day the news broke. A pregnancy was on the way for Tana at that time. She experienced a miscarriage a few days later. Gordon tried to stop the damage by hiring public relations experts for $25,000 per month, denying the affair and threatening lawsuits. His weight loss was 14 pounds in only 3 weeks. Tana temporarily removed herself and the children from their house. Tana was 20 weeks along in her pregnancy with her son in April 2016. Rocky was his given name. However, an error occurred. All of a sudden, everything shifted. Although he was born alive, Rocky was too tiny to make it. He was slightly more than 1 pound. It had shattered the family. According to Gordon, there is no manual for dealing with a loss of this magnitude. We had a devastating weekend. Tana has sadly miscarried our son at 5 months. He wrote on Facebook 2 months later, referring to the photo they had taken a few days previously for Meghan's 18th birthday, which featured a cheerful Tana unaware that her world was about to crumble. In honor of Rocky, they erected monuments. A name bracelet is worn by Gordon. Rocky is etched on Jack's dog tag. The house in Cornwall was named after him. Holly, in memory of her brother who passed away in 2023, decided to get a tattoo. The agony persisted. Tana would continue to unravel even after all these years. In 2024, she mentioned that minor incidents could set off the guilt. Oscar, who was born in 2019, would inquire, "Why can't Rocky come here?" And Tana would be speechless. In 2021, on Rocky's 5th birthday, she wrote, "Not a day goes by when we don't think of him." Oscar was born via in vitro fertilization following a series of miscarriages. It took 18 months and $12,000 to pay for the treatment. While holding him, Gordon sobbed. The man was 52 years old. Gordon had an accident while on vacation in 2016 with his mountain bike before Oscar. He veered off the road to sidestep Jack, but his 30 mm of impact with the ground fractured his nose. He required 12 sutures. For 3 years, they never let anyone know. For 2 weeks, he was unable to film Hell's Kitchen. There was a $3,000 in hospital charge. Jesse James came into this world in the fall of 2023. At the age of 4, Oscar would daily kiss his younger brother. Even though the family was expanding once again in 2025, Gordon remarked, "It still feels like yesterday." The lingering presence of Rocky's absence permeated every room in their home, persisted in molding their emotions. According to Gordon, we wouldn't have Oscar had we not lost Rocky. There was no substitute, but there was a bond. And that bond kept them going through everything, the chaos, the kitchens, and the cameras.